Okay, good evening, everyone. If you can all take a seat, we'll start the presentation here in a moment. So again, my name is Mike Sepper. I'm the chair for the Straits this year. I've probably been getting emails from me, the skippers at least, and hope I've been nice to you, because if I haven't, well, I'm gonna get a lot meaner in the next few days, especially if you haven't given me your documentation. Okay. So we got a lot of people out there working really hard to make this thing a great race. As again, this is our 50th race, so this is going to be something special. We're doing quite a few things in the background, so I hope you guys all enjoy it. I'd like to introduce a few people we have here. Our principal race officer is Jen Ross, if you can stand up there. And we also have our race officer, Mike Hughes. And who do we have here for flag officers? Where's Edward? Edward, he's our past Commodore. You a flag officer, or what are you? Yeah, okay. Everybody say hi to Edward. Okay. There you go. Thank you. I'd also like to thank our co-title sponsors this year. We have Mold Mayhem in terms of Navis. I don't think he's here tonight. And for this year, we actually have a new co-sponsor. It's Mark Luce with Brit Global Services. So I'd like to welcome him aboard. And he's, with the extra funding this year, we've actually got a couple nice little giveaways for the skippers. So I'm sure you guys will be all happy once you see your skipper kits. Okay. And not a problem. And we also have some pretty interesting clothing on for sale this year, 50th anniversary. So it's going to go fast. We didn't order a lot. So if you really want those T-shirts and the hats, you should get in line on Thursday. It's going to be a special once in obviously 50 years logo. So to get things going, because I'm sure you don't want to be listening to me here, we have. We got two great speakers here. We got a lot of combined experience in Straits, I should say. Was it 49 years for you guys? 43? 19, okay, yeah. Well, that's more than me, than how old I am if you add that up. Anyways, so we have Peter Salusbury here, who's going to do a presentation on tactics, weather, whatnot, and then we have Rich Alban here who'll be doing collision protocols. Is that correct? Anti-collision protocols. Okay, yeah. Remember, this is going to be a safe race, right? So everybody's going to be nice up there. So I don't know if anybody's been checking out the weather, but I won't ruin it for Peter here. But looks like it's going to be a nice blow. Anyways, thanks a lot, and I'll hand it over to Peter.
Thanks, Mike. Well, welcome. Rich and I were just saying, you know, without a registration, we'd never really know if anyone's actually going to show up. So thank you very much for showing up. It's always good to know there's a few people who care to come out and listen. So I've got a great series of photographs here, which we dug out of the archives, actually out of Sandy Huntingford's archives, I can't see him, he's back of the room somewhere, or he was at the back. Well, there he is. So Sandy and I are giving a pub night talk tomorrow night on the 50th anniversary of Straits Races. And so we've been going through the archives down below, going through our personal files, phoning up friends, getting sea stories from way back, and it's going to be a great evening tomorrow night. And but as part of that, Sandy dug out these wonderful black and white photographs that he took from the cockpit of SolQuest in 1972. And what you're looking at is the Columbia 50 six-pack from Seattle, barreling up from behind, basically almost out of control. I think, Sandy, as you said, right after this last photo was taken, they really did wipe out. And just look at the way they're flying the spinnaker and how much sail area they got up and how almost out of control they are. It's quite an amazing sequence. I can't imagine how you had the presence of mind in that condition to snap those photos, Sandy, but it's a great sequence, and it gives you a bit of a sense of the history of this race. And our talk tomorrow night is going to be a lot of fun for everybody to reminisce about the good old days. We've got a number of things to talk about with you today, as the byline there shows. I'm going to start off with a bit of a safety moment, same one I did last year, which I got good feedback on, so I thought I would include it again. And then we're going to hand it over to Rich, and he'll get right into the collision regulations, nighttime sailing, all that kind of good stuff that all of us should know about and often forget about when we go offshore at night. Then we'll walk you through the race course, talk about the start, then have a leg-by-leg kind of commentary. I'll throw my 2 bits on the table, and then Rich gets to argue against me and debate and share his experience as well as hear from anybody from the crowd. Anything that we say that just doesn't resonate with you, speak up. And then we're going to I've got a couple of long-range weather slides that I'll share with you from University of Washington weather models, just to give you a sense of what we think is happening anyway on the models. 7 days is a long ways out still. And then Rich is going to finish with a safety slide as well, which is something I stumbled upon that he wrote 2010 after the epic 2010 race. Which was a really, really good document that I discovered in the files, which I'd like him to present. And then we'll hopefully have questions and that kind of thing. So quite a bit tonight is planned on our agenda. So I'm going to start with my safety moment. And for those of you who would never heard about this, in the 1977 Straits race, I was the foredeck crew, a somewhat younger foredeck crew than I am today, on a Peterson 35 called the Pierce Arrow. And we had won the race overall in 1976. And in the 1977 race, we were beating back from Bolinas Island in a very, very rough race. It was a very, very quick race, but a very rough race. And we were in a basically attacking duel with 2 other one-tonners at the time. It was probably blowing about 30 at the time. Number 3, reef in the main. And we thought, well, we're going to be really clever and sail right into Worldcom Island shore and see if we can get out of the waves a bit, see if we get some favorable current. Maybe we'll get a nice port tack lift coming off the island. We just needed some kind of an edge because we were literally crossing tacks with 2 other one-tonners. And at the time, we were all way ahead on corrected time. So whoever crossed the line first was going to win the race overall. And so we sailed in probably somewhere about here somewhere, and we're just getting ready to tack. And remember, it's blowing about 30 knots. Number 3, I know it was 1 or 2 reefs in the main, and the turnbuckle on the upper shroud broke. It just shattered. The rig went over the side, and so we're on a lee shore, winds coming in here, and the sea's blowing us onto the shore here. You can't tell in this photograph, but that's a rocky bluff here and a rocky bluff here. We went to start the motor. We got the master to clear it away. Went to start the motor. I went to go look for the push button, and on the long starboard tack all the way across from Bolinas, somebody had put their foot up against the starter button and punched it right through the cockpit side of the wall. We never noticed it. So no starter. And of course, it buried itself into the back of a lazarette on those boats. Of course, you could never get back there because in a million years in a short. So it's one of those great lessons in, when things go bad, they can really go bad and really go bad really fast. And so we were a pretty experienced crew, so we kind of divided up the work effort. Someone's on doing Mayday. Someone's deploying. I was on the foredeck deploying an anchor, thinking, well, maybe it would catch for even just a minute or two, give us a bit of, because nobody was near us except these 2 boats, and they kept going. So we'll come back to that one in a minute. They kept going, notwithstanding the fact they would have known that we were in distress. So there were some boats that were a long way back behind us, heard our Mayday, took the jibs down, put the power on, and tried to get to us in time. But eventually we just kept drifting in. And as luck would have it, and it is literally lucky, these are 2 very, very steep bluffs. If we'd come across, if we hit there or hit there, we would have been we really would have been in trouble. As it turns out, the tide was at a certain point, and we landed in between the 2. And this is actually a little ledge that was just below water at the time. So we came all the way in, drifted in, hanging on, really not too sure what the heck we were going to do, to be honest, until the boat hit the rocks. And the boat came up against this ledge and was just sort of started smashing against it. So we just keep smashing. And we kind of looked at each other and realized this is our moment. So one by one, took our time and jumped off the boat onto this ledge and grabbed the next person, dragged them up the beach. I was the second one off. Chris Ebehoy was first. I was second. John's Paul Code, big John, tall Paul Code, he got his foot wrapped in a spinnaker sheet. So as we were pulling him up the beach, the boat was pulling him back. And of course, you got to remember that as all this is happening, we're on a ledge, and the boat is sitting right there, and it's coming up at us. Every wave, it's coming up at us, and we're just dreading any minute it could come right up on top of us. So we finally got him untangled, got everybody else off, scrambled up the beach, and then the mighty wave came along that just did pick up the entire boat and deposit it on top of the ledge. And as the tide came in, it just kept pushing it, and it ended up somewhere up the beach, up in here somewhere. And then finally the tide went out and dried out. But it's one of those, as I say, it's just a really good example of good boat, good crew, well prepared, well trained, and yet a whole lot of things went wrong all at the same time, and how you have to react to that. And we really did feel like we were extremely lucky to get away with that. So a few lessons learned that I'll just share with you. Something I preach a lot on our boat is situational awareness. You know, always be looking, listening to your boat equipment, even things you don't think of. Stuart Jones, who sails with me, is a master at this. He is always looking at things and spotting things before they go wrong. And so even a starter motor button, look at it, check it every once in a while, make sure it's still there. Anticipate what can go wrong and be prepared for anything. You just can't do enough of that. And probably most important in this case, we never should have been on that shore. There's no way we should have gone in there, and that is absolutely the biggest lesson in this. We were really pushing our lot, being on the lee shore, in that kind of wind and sea state. Most importantly, immediately cease racing and go to the aid of an obviously stricken boat, and that's a lesson that you had in your lessons learned from 2010 as well, which he'll talk about a little bit later on. The two boats that didn't come to our assistance were not only protested, but there was a whole long saga of litigation and appeals and protests that happened and they were both disqualified from the race and banned for racing for 2 years. So if you're even remotely thinking someone's in trouble, stop and go with their aid and check it out. Importance of everyone knowing how to quickly access and use VHF radio, flares, anchor, all that. I mean, we did everything right, as it turns out, because we were a pretty experienced crew. But even then, it was, when I look back, it was probably almost nothing the only thing we learned from this that we didn't do is learn how to manually start the engine, which we did learn how to do. And then just some general things. These are really obvious things, but the importance of wearing approved PFDs and life harnesses. I don't know if we had PFDs on or not back in 1976, to be honest. I actually don't remember wearing one. We may have had them on, but it's unlikely. A lot of the pictures you look at back then, none of us were wearing any of that stuff. Making sure all our strobes are up to date and working. And the other one that I think is always a good one to do, and people, they run their jack lines at the docks of their boats when it's nice and calm, and they never actually think, well, what's it going to be like when the boat's heeled over? It's pitching around, and I've got to move forward in the dark. I always think to make sure that the guys on our boats clip them on and run forward and run back again, and just get a sense of to take your time and do it slowly, and just make sure you understand how you're going to move forward on a boat. With jack lines, it's one of those things that's seldom we actually do. So, I don't have any questions on that. The boat was pulled off the rocks that night. We fixed the boat up, and it came back, and it won another Straits race overall in 1979. So it was a really good boat. So, Rich, I'll turn it over to Rich.